websites and the virtual world. Age verification to access age-restricted areas. What is age verification? Online age verifications are basically a form of security that will validate your age before allowing you to access the content of a website. Why is it used? It's kind of a measure used to prevent minors from accessing content that they shouldn't really be allowed to before they obviously reach mature age. When was it established? Different forms of online age verification began after the FTC enacted the Children's Online Privacy Protection Rule, or COPPA. COPPA imposes certain requirements on operators of websites or online services directed to children under 13 years of age, and on operators of other websites or online services that have actual knowledge that they are collecting personal information from a child under 13 years of age. This led to many websites beginning to ask for some form of age verification from its consumers. The current status of age verification, it's the process and use of online age verification differs depending on the sites being browsed. It's become more prominent as technology advances. It's generally used for more consumer-oriented sites to keep minors off of them, like tobacco, alcohol, gambling. It can come in different formats as well. They can ask for your birth date, for federated identification, or even credit card identification. This is really useful to protect against unwanted or explicit content, and it is a common protective method for minors or children. Typically, it's a one-step verification. It could easily be bypassed with the use of free identification software. It adds a means for crucial personal information to be leaked, assures the vendor or the product provider that the consumer is of age, and allows for a target audience to be reached easier, like age-restricted forms of entertainment.
So for our first real world application, we have an online e-cigarette vendor, and they go by the name of elementvape.com. And this application, being recognized as an e-cigarette vending machine website, it allows for the purchase of any and all electronic cigarette products and accessories within the United States. It is required by law to make sure that any purchase of any sort of product, there's a requirement that the consumer must be 21 years old. As you enter the website that you're trying to observe, you're immediately welcomed with a questionnaire asking if you're 21 years or older. There's no true verification required until you reach the checkout stage for the website. In order for your order to be processed, you need to include your name, address, date of birth, and it must match your state issued ID. This is an example of the picture, like a picture example of what the website looks like for Element Vape. So over on the left, we have the verification window when you first enter the site, making sure that you're of legal age to be on the website and shop these products. And then the second is the age verification that you see at checkout when you go to buy the product. And this is just important because it covers the company if somebody underage decides to make a purchase on the website. It makes sure that the website isn't held responsible because they ask for all these age verifications and requirements and match them to make sure that everything on their end look good. The next real world application is an online alcohol vendor called drizzly.com. And this is being recognized as an online liquor vendor. Once the website is accessed, it doesn't bring up a simple verification window similar to the electronic cigarette vendor, but it forces the user of the website to put in their credit card information so that once that information is entered in, they can use it to verify the person's identity through the credit card company. And right away from there, they would know if the person is old enough or not to be on the website or even buy the alcohol from the website. This company also uses an in-person verification as the alcohol is being delivered to them by the grocery store providing the product, meaning that once you go to pick it up in person or the product is delivered, there's someone there that has to check your ID just to ensure that you are indeed over 21 and you are able to legally purchase the alcohol that you bought off the website. As you can see on the left, once the delivery is sent to your house or pickup location, an ID verification is required in order to accept the order and actually take it from the vendor. So over here on the left, it says that delivery personnel will ask for a valid ID and rely on the technology of their smartphones to check if the customer's form of identification is actually valid or not. And they do that by scanning the barcode on your ID. So even if it's a fake ID, they would still be able to tell the difference between the fake and the real because they use the barcode to scan it. And failure to provide your ID, or if you have an invalid ID, would just mean that you never get your delivery actually given to you, and the driver would not be delivering it, and it would take it back to the vendor, and returns would be subject to a $20 restocking fee at the discretion of the retailer. So basically, if you're not old enough to get the alcohol and receive it, then you get charged an extra $20 for them sending it back. And the third one is for online gambling, and it basically is the same as the previous two. To get on any of the online gambling accounts or websites, you need to first make an account within the creation process. Verification is implemented by asking the registering player to validate their identity through providing their either a picture of their ID or the ID number to ensure that underage gambling doesn't happen on their website. Again, even if they do it through a parent's computer or a public computer, they still check ID just to make sure that nobody underage is illegally gambling on their website. And it's still more about just covering their own, protecting their own back, because there could be serious lawsuits and other financial trouble if somebody underage was actually allowed access to the gambling website through a fake identification. An example of this is for Caesars Casino, and as you can see in the screenshot, it says that electronic verification is performed in order to validate the age and identity of the users registering for an account. And then further down, it shows the preventative measures against accidental usage from minors that are also established. So basically not allowing children to be near the computer when you're logged into the website. Don't allow anybody under 21, which is the legal gambling age, to access any gambling activity. And then third is keep your money, username, password away from all those underage. And last is obviously educating the children about how illegal it is to gamble if you're underage and the dangers of the gambling itself.
Okay, so now we're cutting back in. All right, so my personal opinions on the matter are very straightforward in a sense. So I personally believe that the current methods of online age verification, besides the websites that use age verification to buy over 21 products, including alcohol or tobacco, are ineffective to the average consumer. So given how prominent the age verification is for a lot of these websites that have explicit content, is within the United States, I would expect the quality of the actual verification to be greater than what it is, because a lot of the time you'll just have simple pop-ups explaining either or giving the viewer, the consumer, an option to say, oh, I'm older than 21, or oh, I am younger than 21. In many cases, it is beneficial to have the age verification. That's for sure, hands down, one of the most basis, or the most basic foundational ideas about the topic, especially when it's taken into account the adult-rated content or goods that are sold online, whether it be pornographic content, whether it be any sort of gaming restrictions or games that require you to be 18 or older, and you can go through the online formats by doing that, or whether it be, as aforementioned, um, gambling, tobacco, or alcohol purchasing, indoor gambling. So it's certainly straightforward in a manner where it's ideas of force usage are there, but the actual implications that arise due to it are much greater than its benefits. The ethical approach to the matter would be to rework the entire system in itself, ensure that the actual age verification is taking place to where the consumers won't even be able to browse the websites prior to verifying. Because as aforementioned, a lot of the websites require you to provide identification before checkout or before purchase, specifically, or another example with alcohol where they check your ID on delivery. It's very interesting in that regard. If a website is deemed to have adult-rated content or is adult-oriented, then the age verification process would differ, in comparison to the rest. Because the simple verification of a questionnaire wouldn't be the most viable use or the most viable method of verification overall. A majority of the individuals on this topic would be very split. The decision itself or the idea behind it would be very split. One party could believe that, oh, their freedom is being restricted as the World Wide Web is a huge place. The internet can be surfed for hours upon hours. So many different sources can be found. And they wouldn't want that type of freedom taken away from them. But another party, this would be more oriented towards parents or towards those who have younger siblings or anybody along those lines who don't want their younger siblings seeing the content on these adult-rated sites. And this other group would be more pressuring towards having the age verification to ensure that whoever accesses the computer doesn't see the information, or to see that whoever is actually going about accessing these sites aren't going and seeing the wrong things or seeing things that they wouldn't want, certain people to see, aka kids. With something as broad as the internet, it's easy to point fingers at each other and say, oh, I'm right, you're wrong, oh, this and that. But it's honestly dependent on the consumer as to what they would want to see in their viewpoint. Some potential ramifications include, constricting the freedom, as previously mentioned. It could be a breach of information for those more sketchy sites or for those more non-reassured sites by, government backgrounds or government background checks or anything along those lines. A lot of the information could be non-confidential. Us as consumers, we don't know that. It's up to the companies to protect their information. It's much easier to track the consumer because you can see that they ordered through this site. You can see that they had to verify their identification as well as find somewhere to ship, so they'll have some way to track back that person. And the information itself that's stored on the website could be outsourced to other different companies, to third-party softwares in order to essentially steal your information. So overall, I believe that in the future, changes will need to be made, considering how for some of these sites, it's so simple to get about bypassing the age verification checks, as previously seen on my example for the electronic cigarette website, where all they do is ask you a simple questionnaire. Whether the improvement that's being provided is, via legal identification or state recognized, unless you have that sort of affirmation that your information itself is going to be protected, that's another source of breach. So it's hard for the consumer themselves to want to follow this format, especially when they're providing something as personal as their driver's license or state ID. So, as previously mentioned, the process itself for online age verification has its benefits, but also has a lot of drawbacks, and it needs to be overall improved in order for it to fully protect us and fully ensure that the consumers who are purchasing the content or who are accessing these specific websites are of age, as well as there has to be new forms of accountability implemented into this, so where the companies themselves shouldn't be allowed to outsource information, and there has to be some sort of checking for that in itself.